about the angles formed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So if we have two parallel lines and then there is a transversal which intersects them, you have to identify the alternate interior angles or corresponding angles. The alternate interior angles will be the ones which are inside those parallel lines and they are on opposite sides. So as you can see here, inside the parallel lines. So parallel lines के अंदर जो angles बनेंगे वो बाहर भी बन रहे हैं, वैसे हम वो नहीं लेंगे. We are just taking the angles which are formed in the interior and we have to make them in pairs so that they are not together. So the angle here will be equal to the angle over here. I have put similar marks so that you can identify, and then the ones marked with star, they will be equal. It forms kind of a cross if you see. And if you highlight the arms of the angles formed here, in case of alternate interior angle, so if we take this angle, this is one angle, and then let's highlight the other one. So it's like letter Z थोड़ा सा distorted है, but Z की तरह बनते हैं ये. And when you are trying to identify corresponding angles, they are on the same side of the transversal, but they are not together as in a linear pair. So if we look at this pair of parallel lines intersected by a transversal, I've changed the position of parallel lines and the transversal in this case. And there are angles formed right here. So there will be 8 angles actually. And if you want to identify which of these form corresponding angles, you want to be on the same side of the transversal. तो हम इस side पे work करते हैं, on the upper side. Transversal के ऊपर वाली तरफ जितने angles बन रहे हैं, तो हमारे पास यहाँ पे 1, 2, 3, 4 angles बन रहे हैं. 4 angles एक तरफ बन रहे हैं, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 angles दूसरी तरफ बन रहे हैं. So stay on one side of the transversal and pair the angles in such a way that they do not form a linear pair. So we call them being alternate. So 1 के साथ 2 आता है, आपको 2 नहीं लेना, उससे अगला एंगल लेना है. And then 2 will be paired up with 4. These make pairs of corresponding angles. And if you highlight corresponding angles, a letter F shape is formed. So if I highlight, say, angle 1, so angle 1 ये है, and it is paired up with angle 3. And if I highlight angle 3, as you can see, this is letter F, but ये inverted है. Distort हो सकती है उसकी shape, means उसकी shape थोड़ी सी खराब हो सकती है, जिस letter की मैं बात कर रही हूँ, और या फिर वो letter inverted हो सकता है. तो यहाँ पे आपके पास F बन रहा है. This is a pair of corresponding angles. Angle 1 and angle 3. एक ये pair बन रहा है. और दूसरा pair बनेगा 2 और 4 का. अगर हम ट्रांसवर्सल की दूसरी तरफ जाते हैं, नीचे वाली साइड पे देखते हैं, तो 5 का पेयर बनेगा 7 के साथ और 6 का पेयर बनेगा 8 के साथ. And from here, if you had to identify alternate interior angles, अब आपको इस पेयर में से आइडेंटिफाई करना है कि alternate interior angles कौन से हैं. तो पहले आप ये देखोगे कि parallel lines के अंदर angles कौन से हैं. तो टोटल यहाँ पे 8 angles हैं. Parallel lines के अंदर बन रहे हैं ये 4. इन चारों में से पेयर इस तरह बनाओ कि क्रॉस बन जाए. सो एक पेयर बनेगा 3 और 6 का और दूसरा पेयर बनेगा 2 के साथ 7 का.
Outside 1 and 8.
Yes, outside it will be 1 and 8. Those are called alternate exterior angles.
Okay.
अगर हम इंटीरियर एंगल्स का पेयर बनाएंगे इस तरह से क्रॉस करके तो वो ऑल्टरनेट इंटीरियर होगा. अगर एक्सटीरियर एंगल्स का पेयर बना दे इस तरह से इन अ क्रॉस वे तो वो बन जाएगा ऑल्टरनेट एक्सटीरियर एंगल्स का पेयर. I hope everyone is now able to recall that this was done by you last year. Still, if you need help, I think I've shared videos on YouTube where I discuss all these angles for 7th standard. So you can just go and watch that. Right now, if anyone has any question, you can ask.
Ma'am, please explain corresponding angles again.
Let's take two lines first. We have a pair of lines here, and let's draw a line, third line, which intersects these two. So this line is my transversal. And mark the angles. Distinct angles mark करने हैं, overlap ना करता हो कोई angle. So there are 8
Excuse
angles.
me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, please share 24th October's work.
Was it exercise 3.2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So we have 8 distinct angles here. And when you want to identify corresponding angles, you want to stay on one side of the transversal. So first thing you want to do is you want to either stay on the left of the transversal or on the right of the transversal. Let's pick the right side. So I'm going to erase the left side so that we can only focus on this side. Let's just ignore these 4 angles. Now you can see there are 4 angles on this side. You want to pair them up so that they are not forming a linear pair. So 2 will be paired up, not with the next angle, but with 5. एक skip कर देना है बीच में से. आपके पास 4 angles हैं, 2, 3, 5, 8. 2 के next जो आ रहा है वो नहीं लेना, उससे अगला लेना है. And then 3 will be paired up with 8. These are the pairs of corresponding angles. And if your lines are parallel, if L and M are parallel, the corresponding angles are equal. The measure of angle 2 will be same as the measure of angle 5. The measure of angle 3 is equal to the measure of angle 8. Similarly, on the other side, if you had to identify, let's just go over the other side. So from this side, on the left side, if you had to pair up, there are 4 angles, 1, 4, 6, and 7. 1 will be paired up with 6 and 4 will be paired up with 7. These are corresponding angles. And from this side, 2 was paired up with 5 and 3 was paired up with 8. These are corresponding. Is it clear now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We have done the first 2 parts and now we have to do the third part. Third part looks like a rhombus here, although we cannot say anything because, yeah, it's a rhombus. Do you think so?
Ma'am, X will be 90 degrees.
X will be 90 degrees. You have to find out the measures of angles X, Y, and Z. X will be 90 degree because X is vertically opposite to this angle, which is indicated as 90 degrees. So X has a measure 90 degree. What about Y and Z?
We can find y by angle sum property of triangle.
That's correct. In this triangle, this small triangle, we can apply angle sum property and then we can find out Y. And what about Z now?
Alternate interior angle of y.
That's correct. Z and Y are forming pair of alternate interior angles. If we go back, these are the opposite sides of our parallelogram. So these will be parallel. तो आपकी एक पैरेलल लाइन ये बन गई और एक पैरेलल लाइन ये बन गई. ट्रांसवर्सल यहाँ पे बनेगी this vertical line. This is your transversal. तो यहाँ पे जो एंगल बन रहा है एक ये वाला और एक ये वाला. So these are interior angles. Parallel lines के अंदर बन रहे हैं और cross बन रहा है इनका. Like they are on the opposite sides. So these two form alternate interior angles. Y and Z, these two will be equal. Let's write the answer. Yes.
Ma'am, we will, ma'am, in this angle sum property, ma'am, we will use 360 degree or 180 degree.
Beta, for a triangle, it's 180. Because we are working
Okay,
in a triangle, the angle sum property we will be using in this triangle. So for triangle, if we use angle sum property, the sum is 180. 3 एंगल्स का सम 180 होगा. यहाँ पे y है, x है और 30 है. इन तीनों का सम 180 डिग्रीज लिखेंगे.
क्वाड्रिलेटरल का मैम 360 डिग्री होता है.
यस, क्वाड्रिलेटरल के 4 एंगल्स का सम 360 होता है.
ओके मैम.
My parallelogram was not named, so I've named it myself. I've also marked the point of intersection of the diagonals as O. So first of all, x can be written equals to 90 degrees because we have a pair of vertically opposite angles formed at point O. Two lines are intersecting, so pair of opposite angles will be equal. This mark tells us that the angle is 90 degrees. Now for y, we are going to apply angle sum property in triangle COB. This small triangle here, I'm going to apply angle sum property in this one. 3 angles, their sum will be 180 degrees. Out of these two, x and y, I have the measure for x, 90 plus y plus 30 equals to 180 degrees. From here, y comes out to be 60 degrees. And then finally, to find out z, we have the opposite sides parallel and alternate interior angles will be equal. So z will be equal to y. These are forming a pair of alternate interior angles. And z will have the same measure as y. So those who have done, they can draw the figure for the next part.
I'm done.
Is anyone writing? Fourth part, you have a parallelogram. This is similar to this one. Can you see? Second and the fourth part, they are similar.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So if you remember how we did this question, exactly like that, you can do this question to find out x, y, and z. First thing we can do is we can find out y opposite to 80. Opposite angles of a parallelogram are equal, so y will be equal to 80 degrees. Then to find out x, you can use the property that adjacent angles are supplementary. So sum of x and 80 will be equal to 180 degrees. And then finally, to find out z, you can either use that z is alternate interior with y, they will be equal, or you can use that z will be equal to 80 degrees. These are corresponding. In either way, answer will be same because y 80 के equal है और y z के equal है, तो ये तीनों आपस में equal हो जाएंगे.
Okay, ma'am.
Right? Let's write the answer. I advise that you write yourself and then match with what I do here on the screen.
Ma'am, done.
Very good.
I'm done. Next question.
Okay. You've done the last part as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, let's take a look at the last part. Question number 2, fifth part. You have this parallelogram and a diagonal has been drawn. X, Y, Z are marked here. Two angles are given. This angle here is 112 degrees. This little angle on one side is 40 degrees. So anyone who can tell me which angle can be calculated first?
Ma'am, y is equal to 112 degree opposite angles.
That's correct. So y आ गया हमारे पास.
Yes, ma'am.
And what about x and z now?
Ma'am, ma'am, x by angle sum property.
That's correct. In this triangle, we will apply angle sum property and then we will have x. What about z?
Alternative angles.
Alternative angles. X and z will be equal. These are alternate interior angles and then we will have z. So this is the order in which we can find out the values. Let's write the answer.
And we can also find the value of z by using the property adjacent angles of a parallelogram or supplementary.
Yes. Can you tell me which angles will have the sum 180? Can you just speak the equation that you will write down?
40 degrees plus z plus 112 degrees is equals to 180
That's
degrees.
correct. That's correct. This whole angle with 112. These will be supplementary. That's also correct. Very good.
Ma'am, y is 112 degree, x is 28 degree, and z is also 28 degree.
All right. Let's write the answer. Opposite angles of a parallelogram are equal. Therefore, y is equal to 112. Then, okay, it will be convenient if I just name this ABCD. I'm going to use angle sum property in triangle ADC. So x, y, and 40, the sum will be equal to 180 degrees. Out of x and y, y's value is 112. So x comes out to be 28 degrees. And then finally, z and x are forming a pair of alternate interior angles. So therefore, these two will also be equal. The measure of z will be same as the measure of x. So this is the answer for fifth part. After this, the next two questions are deleted. Third and fourth. We will be doing fifth question.
Ma'am, fifth question done.
Good. Fifth question. The measures of two adjacent angles of a parallelogram are in the ratio 3:2. Find the measure of each angle of the parallelogram. We will be using linear equations along with the properties of parallelogram to find out the values here. With the help of the ratio given, we can let the angles. I hope you remember in chapter number 2, जब ratio given होती है हम angles कैसे let करते हैं, the values. So we will have the angles as 3x, 2x.
3x plus 2x is equal to 180 degree.
And yes,
180.
since these are adjacent angles, their sum will be 180. They will be supplementary. From here, you can find out x. Once you have obtained the value of x, please remember you need to find out the measure of the angle. So आपको जब आंसर देना है, आपको 3x की वैल्यू और 2x की वैल्यू देनी है. Don't just finish your complete your question after calculating x. Give the answer by calculating the value for each of the angles. And similarly, if you take a look at the next question, two adjacent angles of parallelogram have equal measure. Now the two angles are equal, so we can take them as x and x, and again these two will be supplementary. Their sum will be equal to 180. From there you can find out the value of x, and you will have two adjacent angles. And then they are saying find the measure of each angle of the parallelogram. What do you think?
The parallelogram is a rectangle.
That's correct. That's correct. It could be actually a rectangle or a square. We don't know anything yet. So one thing is for sure, each angle is 90 degrees. Depending on the sides, it could be either a rectangle or a square. And then if you look at seventh question, this is similar to the questions we just did, like this one.
Question number 2.
Like this is similar to that. Let's do fifth and sixth question, then we'll come back to seventh question.
Ma'am, value of x in fifth question is 36.
Okay. Let's write down, let the adjacent angles be 3x and 2x. So if there is a parallelogram, I've taken this angle as 3x and this as 2x. The sum will be 180. I would like you to read the last part of the question again. I misread. I thought we had to find out the values for these two, but we have to find out the measure of each angle. All four angles are to be evaluated. So if the parallelogram is named as ABCD, angle A, the one I have shown as 3x, its measure came out to be 108 degrees, and angle B, which I had shown as 2x, came out to be 70 degrees. From here, can you tell me what will be the measure of angle C and angle D?
Angle C will be 108 degrees as it is opposite angles of parallelogram are equal.
That's correct. And what about angle D?
Angle D
72
will
degrees.
be 72 degrees.
That's correct. Opposite angles of parallelogram are equal. This is the reason. Let's write answer for the 6th question.
Done.
Done? Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Now the angles are equal, so I'm taking them as x each. And since
All
they are-
angles are 90 degree.
that's correct. X plus x will be equal to 180 degrees, since adjacent angles are supplementary for a parallelogram. Draw the figure for question number 7. This is what's given. In 7th question, the parallelogram, it's named as HOPE. If you want, you can name this point here, which is not given in the book, as X, just in case we want to name any angle using the arm. So hope here is a parallelogram. You have to find out the measures for the angles represented by X, Y, and Z. And then you also have to state the properties you use to find them. Well, we have been writing down the properties every time we have solved a question. We will make sure that we write those properties in this question as well. Now, this looks quite similar to 5th part of question number 2. If you look, उसके जैसा है बिल्कुल, almost values भी same है, सिर्फ थोड़ा सा switch किया उन्होंने, the places of X, Y, and Z. If you look closely, then we were given interior angles. In this case, we have been given an exterior angle. अंदर वाला angle नहीं दिया हुआ, वहां पे ये, यहाँ पे 112 mark था. It's not the case here. We have an exterior angle. So think of the ways in which you can find out X, Y, and Z. Since these angles are in the interior, you would like to find out the interior angle of the triangle with the help of this exterior angle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark an angle here on my own. Let's mark this as number 1. So this angle, the one I have marked as 1, can be found by using this exterior angle, which is marked as 70 degrees. So 1 and 70 will be forming a linear pair. We will have the value of angle 1. Once we have the value of angle 1, we can find the value of x. It's opposite to the angle 1. Opposite angles of a parallelogram are equal. After that, for z and y, think of some other way. Anyone?
I'm done questioning this.
40 degrees and y is alternate interior angle
That's
pair.
correct. 40 and y are alternate interior angles. They will be equal. And then we can find out z by using angle sum property in this triangle. Triangle HOP. Right? Let's write, and in case anyone has questions, we can ask. You can ask. Please remember, since in this question, I have marked an angle on my own. I am showing angle 1 here in the figure. So I will be writing here also, in the answer also, I will be mentioning angle 1. तो in case आप कोई question करते हो जिसमें आपने अपनी तरफ से कुछ figure में mark किया है, किसी angle का number रखा है 1, 2, 3 में भी, and आप answer में वो लिख रहे हो, the figure is important. You should draw the figure so that the teacher can see कि आप जो angle अपने answer में mention कर रहे हो वो आपने figure में कहाँ पे mark किया है. So figure in this case will be very
Okay, ma'am.
important.
Ma'am, angle 1 is 110 degree.
Angle 1 and 70 degrees form a linear pair, and angle 1 comes out to be 110 degrees. Now I can find out the angles marked as x, y, and z. X is equal to angle 1. These are the opposite angles of parallelogram. So they will be equal. X will have the same measure as angle 1, which is 110 degrees. And then, as Ananya said, y and 40 are making a pair of alternate interior angles. They will be equal. We have the measure of y as well. Now for z, I'm going to apply angle sum property in triangle HOP. So in triangle HOP, the three angles are y, z, and angle 1. Their sum will be 180 degrees. For y, the value is 40. Z, I don't have. 1 has a value 110 degrees. And from here, z comes out to be 30 degrees.
Question is done. Both parts.
Very good. Anyone with any doubt in this question? If anyone's writing down, please let me know.
No, ma'am.
Let's take a look at question 8. Now, I would just like to give you a reminder here so that you can think easily. The questions that we have done till now, question number 2, 5, 6, and 7, all the questions were based on angles of the parallelogram. We have used the properties of the angles of parallelogram. Now, if you look at question number 8 here, yes, there are two parallelograms given to you, GUNS and RUNS, guns and runs. And then you have to find out x and y, the lengths are in centimeters. So x and y, the variables that we have to find out now, they are representing either the sides. In the first part, x and y are used in sides. And in the second part, we are using x and y for the diagonals. So use suitable property. For the first part, we will be applying properties for the sides of a parallelogram, whereas in second part, we will be applying the properties for diagonals of a parallelogram. So what do you think about, what do you know about sides of a parallelogram?
Ma'am, UN is equal to SG.
Yes, this side will be equal to this side. The opposite sides of a parallelogram are equal. So 3x will be equal to 18. And the other pair of opposite sides, the side on the top and bottom will be equal. So 3y minus 1, this is the length for the bottom side, and 26 is the length for the side on top. These two will be equal. And you will have two separate equations, and you will solve to find out x and y. Let's write the answer for this one. We will come back to second one afterwards.
Xn is equal to 9 and St is equal to 6.
That's great. Question number 8, first part. This is GUNS. This side is 3x. This is 3y minus 1. All the lengths are in centimeters. Please remember, if you want, you can indicate the units here with the values that you have. The property that I'm using is opposite sides of parallelogram are equal. Therefore, SG will be equal to NU and SN will be equal to GU. You can even mark and then use their values to solve. SG is 3x, NU is 18, x comes out to be 6, and from here 26 equals to 3y minus 1.